Inside the prison wing so dangerous even guards rarely enter, the secret corridor investigation. If you think you're ready for what happens inside this wing, subscribe, like, and comment. You're going to need every light you can get. They called it E-Wing, but inside the prison, everyone knew the real name, the Blue Corridor. A place where time didn't move the way it should, where doors seemed to breathe on their hinges, and where even veteran officers spoke in lowered voices. Only a handful were trained to enter it. Most refused unless ordered. Every prison had a wing like this, high-risk segregation, the final stop before breaking. But tonight, E-Wing wasn't silent. At 3:09 a.m., alarms flickered once and died, leaving the prison in a strange, cold hush. A rookie officer doing rounds found something that didn't match any report. A cell door slightly open, its lock unbroken. Inside, the bunk was perfectly made, the sink spotless, and the inmate's identification card placed neatly in the center of the floor. The inmate assigned to that cell wasn't missing. He was supposed to be dead. Or at least, that was what the records suggested, transferred years earlier, then listed under medical discharge with no clear explanation. Nobody questioned it at the time. Not in E-Wing. People vanished from here more quietly than files did. By sunrise, internal affairs was inside the facility. The lead investigator, Dana Harlow, a woman known for noticing what others overlooked, entered E-Wing with 2 officers. Her flashlight cut through the dim corridor, exposing peeling blue paint, scrawled messages etched into metal, and tiny marks near the cameras, scratches like someone had been counting days, or warnings. The rookie, Officer Torres, stood beside her, shaken. "The door wasn't forced," he whispered. "It was open when I found it. Like someone walked out." "But the inmate listed here," Harlow said quietly, reading her file again, "shouldn't be alive to walk anywhere." The deeper they walked, the colder the air became. E-Wing was climate-controlled, every inch monitored, yet the temperature drop didn't register on sensors. Something was wrong beyond the paperwork. Cell by cell, Harlow studied the faces of the inmates inside. Individuals known for manipulation, influence, or unpredictable behavior. They didn't speak. They didn't taunt. They simply watched, following her every step with an unsettling, wordless calculation. At the reopened cell, Harlow crouched, inspecting the ID card. It was clean, uncracked, its barcode still intact. "Why leave this behind?" she murmured. Torres hesitated. "Ma'am, look at the number on the back." She turned it over. The number wasn't the inmate's ID. It was a date. A date 3 weeks from today. Harlow's jaw tightened. E-Wing inmates were not allowed personal items with coded markings. Nothing handwritten. Nothing altered. Yet this card had clearly been placed here intentionally. "This wasn't an escape," she said. "This is a message." Officer Quinn, the second guard, scanned the corridor behind them. "A message from who?" "The inmate's gone." "Gone," Harlow said slowly, "is not the same as escaped." She turned her flashlight up toward the vent above the cell door. The grate had been removed, carefully, not forced, and a faint trail of dust lined the floor beneath it. Someone had accessed an area only maintenance crews could enter, but maintenance logs for E-Wing had been empty for months. That's when Torres stepped back, swallowing. "Ma'am, there's something else." He pointed to the ceiling camera across from the cell. Its lens was painted over with a thin smear of something dark, almost invisible in the low light. But it wasn't paint, it was ink. Ink from the same type of pen issued only to staff. Harlow exhaled sharply. Someone with access came into this wing before the alarms failed. She stood, heart pounding with the realization forming in her mind. This wasn't an inmate acting alone. Someone had helped. Someone who shouldn't have been there. Someone who knew exactly how to move through the prison without appearing on record. Torres checked his notes again. "But ma'am, nobody entered E-Wing last night. Not one badge was scanned." Harlow stared down the blue corridor, the chill settling deeper around her. "That's the problem," she said. "Whoever walked in didn't need to scan anything." As the rookies exchanged uneasy glances, Harlow opened the abandoned cell closet. Inside, taped to the back panel, she found a second ID card. This one didn't belong to any inmate. It belonged to a guard. A guard who hadn't worked here in 5 years. And that was when they realized Ewing wasn't hiding inmates anymore. It was hiding something, or someone else. The abandoned guard ID lay in Harlow's gloved hand like a piece of evidence from a case that never officially existed. The name, Officer Neil Granger, hadn't appeared in any recent roster. His employment record ended abruptly, marked only with a vague administrative separation. No details. No notes. No exit interview. In a prison where paperwork was a religion, Granger's file read like a ghost story. Torres shifted uneasily beside her. "Ma'am, Granger hasn't been here since before I started." "That's what concerns me," Harlow said. Harlow ordered the wing sealed. Officers stationed themselves at both ends of the corridor. The air felt heavy now, like the blue corridor was holding something it didn't want to release. She opened the ID panel again and noticed a tiny strip of adhesive behind where the card had been taped, a second layer. With careful precision, she peeled back the panel. A thin plastic sleeve was hidden underneath, containing a small folded note. The paper was aged, crisp at the edges. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. "Check the South Utility map. Nothing is where you think it is." No signature. No date. But the pen stroke matched the markings found on the painted-over camera. Torres swallowed. "So Granger left this? For who?" "Not for us," Harlow replied. "For someone who was meant to come back." They left the cell and headed to the administrative office, where Harlow pulled the South Utility blueprints. The corridor lights above them hummed softly, flickering in intervals that seemed too rhythmic to be accidental. The wing was wound tight with secrets, and now the walls felt as if they were listening. Harlow spread the blueprint across a metal table. Quinn leaned closer, brow furrowing. Everything looked standard: drainage lines, electrical conduits, vent routes, camera placements. "Nothing unusual," Quinn said. "That's exactly why it's wrong," Harlow murmured. She pointed to a vent line that supposedly ended before reaching the isolation cells. Yet the vent in the missing inmate's cell had clearly been tampered with. The blueprint said the duct didn't extend that far. "Someone altered the original plans," she said. "Or replaced them entirely." Quinn let out a slow breath. "Why change a utility map unless you're hiding movement? Or hiding a person," Harlow added. Before they could examine further, alarms buzzed overhead, not loud, but enough to draw every officer upright. A soft, automated voice cracked through the intercom. "Unauthorized access detected. Administrative storage level." Torres stiffened. "That's below us." Harlow moved fast, her boots hitting the floor with sharp purpose as they raced down the hallway. The storage level was rarely used, mostly holding outdated files, broken equipment, and forgotten crates from wing renovations years earlier. When they reached the door, the lock light glowed green. "Unlocked." Harlow motioned to Torres. He pushed the door open, flashlight cutting through the dimness. Inside, shelves stretched into the dark. Boxes marked as destroyed archives lined the walls. Dust floated through the blue wash of emergency backup lights. Then they saw the footprint. Just one. Fresh. Pressed into a thin layer of dust near the back of the room. "Someone's here," Torres whispered. "Or was," Harlow corrected, stepping forward. Her flashlight moved across the shelves, and stopped. A metal cabinet had been pulled out slightly. Behind it, just barely visible, was a narrow access door flush with the wall. A door not listed on any map. Quinn's voice dropped to a murmur. "Where does that even go?" Harlow put a hand on the cool metal. "Somewhere Granger didn't want anyone to find." She pulled the handle. Dust cracked off the hinges. The door opened into a tight passageway lined with old wiring and steel piping. The air tasted stale, dead, unmoving. A service corridor, but one with boot scuffs in the dirt. Recent scuffs. "I'll go first," Harlow said. They moved single file, Torres at the rear. The passage narrowed, then opened into a small chamber that looked like an old maintenance hub. A faded chair sat in the corner. A clipboard hung on the wall. And on the table was another ID card. This one was newer. Issued 3 months earlier. Belonging to someone who still worked in the prison. Torres lifted it with trembling fingers. "Ma'am, this guard is on duty today." Harlow's stomach dropped. Someone inside the prison, someone currently serving, had access to the hidden corridor. And they had been using E-Wing as a meeting point. Before she could process the implications, a static burst came through her radio. "Harlow, we need you in E-Wing. You're not going to believe what's happening." Her radio crackled again. "Cell 14, someone just closed the door from the inside." The inmate inside cell 14 had been in solitary for months. He had no reason and no permission to leave his cell. He also had no key to lock it. Harlow felt her pulse spike. Someone was moving inside E-Wing. And they weren't done yet. When Harlow stepped back into E-Wing, the temperature felt even lower than before, as if the corridor itself had exhaled. Officers were clustered near cell 14, exchanging tense whispers. The door, which had been open minutes earlier during routine observation, was now sealed shut. No alarms triggered. No logs registered a manual lock. Just a silent, impossible click. Lieutenant Mason, one of the senior officers trained for E-Wing operations, approached Harlow with a grim expression. "We didn't touch it," he said. Door closed on its own. The inmate wasn't near it. Harlow pressed closer to the reinforced glass. Inside, the inmate, Jonas Red, sat on his bunk, his posture rigid, his hands resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on the far wall. He didn't acknowledge the officers banging on the door. He didn't speak. He simply stared, waiting. Torres looked shaken. "Ma'am, Jonas has been in isolation for 8 months. No visitors. No contact except food slots. He shouldn't even know there's an investigation happening." Harlow's eyes narrowed. Unless someone has been contacting him indirectly. She radioed the control booth. "Override cell 14. Now." Silence. Then a distorted voice crackled back. "System error. Manual override disabled." A murmur rippled through the officers. It wasn't the error that frightened them, it was the distortion. As if someone had patched into the line. As if another voice had merged with the system. Harlow turned quickly. "Power down the local panel. We open it manually." As Quinn and Mason moved toward the control box near the cell, Jonas finally shifted. Slowly, deliberately. His eyes met Harlow's through the glass. There was no aggression in them. No fear. Just recognition. Like he had been waiting for her. Quinn popped the panel open. Manual release in 3, 2. The lights overhead flickered violently, plunging E-Wing into darkness for a full second before the blue emergency lights snapped on. Every officer froze. In that single second of darkness, Jonas Red had vanished from the center of the cell. Harlow's heart kicked hard as Quinn yanked the lever. The door slid open. The cell was empty. No noise. No movement. Only the faint smell of dust and old metal. Torres's voice cracked. "He can't be gone. There's nowhere to go. There's no vent access, no crawl space, no." Harlow spotted it first. A strip of blue tape on the far wall, barely the width of a finger. Peeling it back revealed a narrow seam, a hinge line. She pressed her hand against the panel. It opened. Not wide, not obvious, but enough to slip through. Behind it lay a narrow shaft dropping into darkness. Unmapped. Unregistered. Hidden for years. Quinn whispered, "This wasn't built by inmates." "No," Harlow replied. "This was built by staff." Jonas Red had said nothing during his time in isolation. But someone had been communicating with him. Someone who knew the hidden pathways. Someone who had left breadcrumbs, ID cards, fake dates, altered maps, pulling the investigation deeper into the maze. Harlow dropped a glow stick into the shaft. It clattered down metal rungs before landing on solid ground below. The faint green glow illuminated a steel floor. "Torres," Harlow said, "with me." They descended quickly. The shaft opened into an old service corridor, similar to the one they discovered earlier, but cleaner, more maintained. As if someone used it regularly. Then Torres stopped abruptly. "Look." On the floor was a small device. A communication relay. Still warm. And beside it, a folded note. Harlow picked it up carefully. Her stomach tightened as she read. "He didn't escape. He was moved." Torres stepped back. Moved? By who? The hum of machinery echoed faintly through the corridor. A draft of cool air brushed Harlow's face. She followed it to a metal door slightly ajar at the end. Beyond it was a surveillance hub, old equipment, mismatched monitors, improvised wiring. Someone had built a parallel monitoring system beneath the official one. One screen showed Cell 14, or what used to be Cell 14. Now, it displayed a live feed of Jonas Red walking calmly through a hallway no one recognized. "Where is that?" Torres whispered. Another monitor flickered on. A new message appeared in stark white text. "Stop following. This wing isn't yours anymore." Behind them, the shaft door slammed shut. Torres spun around, panic rising. "We're locked in." Harlow stayed still, eyes scanning the monitors, mind racing. E-wing wasn't dangerous because of the inmates. It was dangerous because someone inside the prison had been building an entire shadow operation, using the most isolated wing as its cover. Jonas Red wasn't the mastermind. He was a courier, a message carrier. The test. On the final monitor, a single line typed itself out slowly, letter by letter, as if someone was watching them and responding in real time. "If you want him back, follow the map." And the screen switched to black. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.